I was standing in my living room when I heard the truck pull up. For a second, I thought maybe they were finally coming to visit. You know, the way families are supposed to. But when I saw them backing up to my porch, my son gripping the steering wheel, my daughter-in-law already out and sizing up my furniture through the window, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Something that whispered, "This isn't a visit." They didn't knock. They just walked in, smiles plastered on their faces like they were doing me the biggest favor in the world. "Mom." My son's voice was too bright, too cheerful. "We're here to help you out." I blinked at him. Help me out? I hadn't asked for help. My daughter-in-law was already circling the room like a hawk. Her fingers traced the edge of my late husband's rocking chair, the one he'd sit in every evening after dinner. The one that still smelled faintly of his cologne if you leaned in close enough. "This is beautiful," she said, not to me, but to my son. "This would look perfect in our new living room." "Wait, what are you?" "Mom, listen." My son put his hand on my shoulder, the way you'd calm a confused child. "You don't need all this stuff anymore. This house is too big for you. All this furniture, these old things, they're just cluttering up your space." Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. Cluttering up my space? These weren't things. This was my life. Every piece in this house told a story. That couch? We bought it the year my son learned to ride a bike. The painting over the fireplace? My husband surprised me with it on our 20th anniversary. The dishes in the kitchen? Wedding gifts from people who loved us. But they weren't listening. They were already moving. "We'll take the sofa first," my daughter-in-law announced, waving toward the front door. "The truck's right there." I opened my mouth to protest, but the words stuck in my throat. How do you tell your own son no? How do you fight back when the person stealing from you is the same person you once rocked to sleep? My son was already lifting one end of the couch. "Come on, Mom. We're doing this for you. You'll feel so much lighter without all this heavy furniture weighing you down." Weighing me down. As if memories had physical weight. As if love could be measured in pounds. I watched them carry it out. My couch. The one my husband and I used to sit on every Sunday morning with coffee and the newspaper. Gone. Then came the coffee table. The lamps. The dining chairs, chairs where we'd celebrated birthdays, Thanksgivings, Christmases. My daughter-in-law pointed at each one like she was shopping at a yard sale. "That mirror? We'll take it. Those end tables? Perfect for the guest room." I felt like I was disappearing. With every piece they carried out, I became smaller. Lighter, just like my son said. But not in a good way. In the way that ghosts are light. In the way that things that don't matter anymore are light. "Mom, don't look so worried." My son paused at the door, balancing my grandmother's antique lamp in his arms. "We're family. This stuff stays in the family. Isn't that what you always wanted?" What I wanted. I wanted my son to visit because he missed me, not because he needed furniture. I wanted my daughter-in-law to look at me like I was a person, not an estate sale. I wanted to matter more than the things I owned. But I didn't say any of that. I just stood there, frozen in the middle of my emptying living room, watching my life get loaded onto a truck. Then my daughter-in-law came for the painting. The one over the fireplace. My husband had surprised me with it decades ago, and I'd never moved it since. It wasn't expensive, but it was ours. "This is gorgeous," she breathed, already lifting it off the wall. "This will be the centerpiece of our new house." "That's not," I finally found my voice. "That's not for you." She looked at me like I'd said something funny. "Oh, don't worry. We'll take good care of it." Take good care of it. Like I hadn't been doing that for 30 years. My son came back in, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What else, babe?" "The kitchen appliances. The microwave, the toaster oven. Oh, and those dishes, the ones with the blue trim." "Those were wedding gifts," I whispered. "Exactly." My daughter-in-law smiled at me. "Which means they're old. You need new things, not these relics." Relics. She called my memories relics. They moved through my house like locusts. The bedroom furniture. The hallway mirror. Even the throw pillows from the couch they'd already taken. Nothing was safe. Nothing was sacred. At some point, I sat down on the only chair they'd left, an old wooden stool in the corner, and just watched. What else could I do? Call the police on my own son? Scream at him? Beg? I'd raised him better than this. Or at least I thought I had. I'd given him everything. Private school when we could barely afford it. Money for his first business when he asked. Love, always love, even when he forgot to call on my birthday. Even when he missed Christmas. Even when he stopped coming around unless he needed something. You can give a child the world, but if you don't teach them gratitude, they'll grow up thinking the world owes them more. I taught him gratitude. I know I did. So where did it go? When did my son, my baby boy, turn into this stranger who looked at his mother's home like it was a storage unit? I think that's everything, my daughter-in-law finally said, hands on her hips, surveying the bare rooms with satisfaction. Everything. She was right. They'd taken everything. My son looked at me one last time before heading out. For just a second, I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or doubt. But then my daughter-in-law called his name from the truck, and whatever I'd seen vanished. We'll call you soon, Mom, he said. Once we get settled in the new place. No, you won't, I thought. But I didn't say it. I watched them load the last box, my photo albums, my husband's books, and climb into the truck. The engine roared to life. They were leaving. They were actually leaving. I stood at my window, looking out at my empty driveway, my empty porch, my empty life. The truck rolled forward, heading toward the gate at the end of my property. But then, just as they reached it, something happened. The brake lights flared red. The truck jerked to a stop. And through the windshield, I saw my son's face freeze in an expression I'd never seen before. Pure terror. What do you think happened at the gate? Have you ever had someone you trusted betray you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I couldn't see what they were looking at. Not from my window. But I could see them, frozen like statues behind that windshield. My daughter-in-law's mouth was moving, probably yelling, but my son just sat there gripping the wheel. Then I saw him. Mr. Patterson from next door, standing at the gate with his phone in his hand. He wasn't blocking their way exactly, but he wasn't moving either. Just standing there, calm as Sunday morning, with that phone pointed right at their truck. My heart started hammering. I hadn't told Mr. Patterson anything. Hadn't asked him to watch my house. But he'd been my neighbor for 15 years, and some things you don't need to say out loud. My son opened his door slowly. I could see him trying to smile, trying to look casual, but his hands were shaking. I moved away from the window. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to watch whatever was about to happen. Maybe I was afraid I'd feel sorry for him. My own son. The boy I'd bandaged when he fell off his bike. The teenager I'd stayed up with during college application season. The man who just robbed me blind. The house felt different now. Empty, sure, but it was more than that. It felt violated. Like someone had reached inside my chest and rearranged everything wrong. The echo of my footsteps on the bare floor made me want to cry, but I'd cried enough over the years. When my husband died. When my son stopped calling. When my daughter-in-law looked at me like I was an inconvenience instead of family. I walked through each room, taking inventory of what was gone. The kitchen looked like a skeleton. They'd even taken the good pots and pans, the ones I'd saved up for years to buy. The bedroom was just walls and carpet now. They'd stripped it clean, mattress, dresser, even the little jewelry box my husband gave me on our first anniversary. Wait. The jewelry box. My breath caught. That box had my wedding ring in it. The one I'd stopped wearing after arthritis made my fingers swell. My grandmother's pearl necklace. The silver bracelet my son gave me when he was 7, bought with his own allowance money. They took that too. I sat down on the floor, there were no chairs left, and let the reality wash over me. My son had stolen his own childhood gift back. Did he even remember giving it to me? Did he remember how proud he'd been, how he'd made me close my eyes before putting it on my wrist? Or had his wife spotted it and decided it was worth something? The front door opened. I heard footsteps, but I didn't get up. Didn't have the energy. Mrs. Chun. It was Mr. Patterson's voice, gentle like always. You okay in here? Did they leave? My voice sounded hollow even to me. Not exactly. He came into view, his weathered face creased with concern. I got everything on video. Every single item they loaded. Time-stamped and clear as day. I looked up at him. Why? Because I've been watching this happen for months. He sat down on the floor next to me, knees cracking. Saw them coming by when you weren't home. Saw them measuring your furniture through the windows. Saw your daughter-in-law taking pictures of your things. I knew something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. That was the understatement of the century. They're waiting at the gate, he continued. I told them the police were on their way. Showed them the video. Your son looked like he'd seen a ghost. You called the police? Not yet. Wanted to check on you first. He pulled out his phone. But I will if you want me to. This is theft, Mrs. Chun. I don't care if he's your son. This is straight-up robbery. Was it though? Could you rob someone who'd given you everything already? Could you steal from someone who'd spent their whole life handing you the world on a silver platter? Maybe you could. Maybe that's exactly when it hurt the most. There's something else you should know, Mr. Patterson said quietly. I heard them talking while they were loading up. Your daughter-in-law was on the phone with someone. Said something about how you'd be moving into a home soon anyway, so this stuff would just go to waste. A home. A nursing home. They'd already planned my future. Already decided I was too old, too useless to live in my own house. Already written me off like expired milk. She said this. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Exact words were, she won't need any of this where she's going. He shook his head. Like you were already gone. I wasn't gone. I was sitting right here on my empty floor, very much alive, very much aware that my family had just erased me. The anger came then. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold kind that settles in your bones and turns everything clear and sharp. The kind that makes you stop crying and start thinking. Mr. Patterson, I said slowly, do you still have that video? Every second of it. And you saw them take things from inside my house? Watched them carry out at least 30 items. Got their faces, the truck's license plate, everything. I stood up. My knees ached, but I stood up anyway. Then yes. Call the police. He looked at me carefully. You sure? Once we do this, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. And I was. Because here's what my son and his wife didn't know. I might be old, but I wasn't stupid. I might be alone, but I wasn't helpless. And I might have loved them, but love has limits when it's met with nothing but greed. Mr. Patterson made the call. I listened to him give the address, describe what happened, mention the video evidence. His voice was steady and calm, like he was reporting a broken streetlight instead of a family falling apart. Through the window, I could see the truck still sitting at the gate. My son had gotten back inside, but they weren't moving. They were trapped between leaving with stolen goods and staying to face consequences. Either way, they'd lost. For just a moment, standing there looking at my son through that window, I was thrown back 30 years. I saw him at 5 years old, clutching my hand on his first day of kindergarten. Saw him at 12, bringing me flowers he'd picked from the neighbor's garden because he'd forgotten my birthday. Saw him at 22, walking across that graduation stage, finding me in the crowd and mouthing, I love you. When did that boy die? Or had he ever really existed at all? The handcuffs clicked around his wrists, and reality snapped back into focus. My daughter-in-law was screaming now, her voice carrying all the way to my front door. This is insane. We're family. You can't do this to family. But they were doing it. Because family or not, theft is theft. Love doesn't give you permission to take. Blood doesn't erase consequences. Officer Rodriguez came back up to the house. We're taking them both in for questioning. The items in the truck will be documented and returned to you. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? Any other family? I almost laughed. Somewhere safe. Other family. As if I had anyone left. She can stay with us, Mr. Patterson's wife Linda said from behind me. I hadn't even heard her come in. We've got the guest room all ready. I can't impose. You're not imposing. You're accepting help from people who actually care about you. Linda put her arm around my shoulders, and something inside me finally broke. I started crying, really crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and painful. Linda held me while I sobbed. Held me while they loaded my son and daughter-in-law into separate police cars. Held me while they photographed every item in that truck, while they wrote down serial numbers and took statements from neighbors I didn't even know had been watching. Apparently, I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. Mrs. Kim from across the street came over with a casserole. I saw the whole thing. Called my daughter, she's a lawyer. She'll call you tomorrow. The Johnsons from 2 doors down brought over a chair and a lamp. Just until you get your stuff back. Nobody should have to sit on the floor in their own home. Even young Marcus from the corner, who usually just waved from his car, stopped by with his tablet. I caught some of it on my doorbell camera. Already sent it to the police. That was messed up, what they did. People I'd barely spoken to beyond polite hellos were suddenly rallying around me. Building a wall of support I hadn't known I needed. While my own blood, the family I'd sacrificed everything for, had tried to tear me down. The police finally left around 8 o'clock. The truck stayed, surrounded by yellow tape like a crime scene. Because that's what it was. A crime scene. The scene of my son's betrayal. Come on, Linda said gently. Let's get you settled next door. You can deal with all this tomorrow. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. I walked through my empty house one more time, seeing it differently now. Yes, they'd taken my furniture. Taken my things. But they hadn't taken everything. They hadn't taken the pencil marks on the kitchen door frame where I'd measured my son's height every birthday. Hadn't taken the scuff on the hallway wall where he'd crashed his first bike. Hadn't taken the loose floorboard in the bedroom where my husband and I used to hide love notes for each other. The memories weren't in the furniture. They were in me. In these walls. In every corner of this house that had held my life for 40 years. They could take my couch, but they couldn't take the memory of curling up on it with my husband during thunderstorms. They could take my dishes, but they couldn't take the taste of the meals I'd served on them. They could take that painting, but they couldn't take what it meant, the day my husband splurged on something beautiful just to see me smile. You know what's funny? I said to Linda, who was waiting patiently by the door. I spent so much time worrying about my son. Worrying about whether he was happy, whether he had enough, whether I'd done right by him. I never worried about myself. That's what mothers do, Linda said. But where does it end? When do you stop setting yourself on fire to keep your children warm? I looked around the bare living room. I think I just found my answer. We went next door. Linda's house was everything mine had been before today, full of life, full of things that mattered, full of warmth. She set me up in their guest room, brought me tea, tried to get me to eat something. I couldn't. My stomach was twisted in knots. My mind kept replaying the day on loop. Keep seeing my son's face when those handcuffs went on. Kept hearing my daughter-in-law's screams about family. Around midnight, my phone rang. I'd forgotten I even had it in my pocket. The caller ID said County Jail. My hand shook as I answered. Hello? Mom. My son's voice was small, broken. Nothing like the confident tone he'd used when he was loading up my furniture. Mom, you have to fix this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. As if he'd accidentally loaded a truck with my entire life. A misunderstanding, I repeated flatly. Yes. We were helping you downsize. You know that. You were confused, and that neighbor twisted everything around. Mom, please. They're talking about pressing charges. Real charges. Do you know what this could do to my business? To our reputation. Not once did he ask about me. Not once did he apologize. Just worried about his business, his reputation. His. Were you planning to bring any of it back? I asked quietly. Silence. Were you going to call me once you got settled? Or were you just going to keep my things and hope I forgot? Mom, that's not. Look, we're family. Family helps each other out. We needed furniture, and you have had so much. It only made sense. It made sense to steal from your mother. That's not what happened. His voice rose, defensive and angry. God, why are you being so dramatic? They're just things. When did you become so materialistic? Just things. My wedding china. My husband's chair. The jewelry box with his last Mother's Day gift inside. Just things. You're right, I said. They are just things. So it shouldn't be a problem for you to give them back. We can't just, Mom, we already moved everything into the new house. It would be such a hassle to. Then I guess you'll be dealing with those charges. What? No, Mom, wait. I hung up, turned off my phone, sat there in the darkness of Linda's guest room and felt something shift inside me. Something that had been bending for years, trying to accommodate my son's endless demands, finally snapped straight. I wasn't going to bend anymore. The next morning, Mrs. Kim's daughter called. Her name was Jennifer, and she had the kind of voice that meant business. Mrs. Chen, I've reviewed the police report and the video evidence. You have a very strong case. But I need to know, what do you want to happen here? What did I want? I wanted my son back. The real one, the one who used to make me breakfast on Mother's Day. But that boy was gone. Maybe he'd never existed outside my own hopeful imagination. I want my things back, I said. Every single item. And I want them to know they can't do this to people. Not to me, not to anyone. They're claiming it was a misunderstanding. That you gave them permission. I did no such thing. I stood there in shock while they robbed me. Good. That's what I needed to hear. Here's what's going to happen. The DA is deciding whether to press criminal charges for theft and elder abuse. Regardless of that, we're going to file a civil suit to ensure return of all property and damages for emotional distress. Elder abuse. The words hit me like cold water. That's what this was. My own son had abused me. There's something else, Jennifer continued. I pulled up property records. Your house, it's in a trust. Yes. My husband set it up years ago. Everything's protected. Does your son know that? I thought about it. Had I ever told him? Had his father? I don't think so. Then they're in for another surprise. Any items documented in that trust, which appears to be everything based on the inventory your husband filed, are legally untouchable. Attempting to take them is a federal offense. The DA might add fraud charges. My husband. Even from the grave, he was protecting me. He'd known somehow that I might need protection someday. Had he seen something in our son that I'd been too blind to see? The next few days were a blur. Police interviews. Legal consultations. Neighbors stopping by with food and support. My house slowly filling back up as items were returned from the truck, each one photographed and documented as evidence. My son called 17 times. I didn't answer. His wife called 12. Didn't answer those either. They left voicemails that started angry, turned pleading, then went back to angry again. A cycle of blame and excuses. On day 4, I finally listened to one message all the way through. Mom, this is ridiculous. My daughter-in-law's voice dripped with venom. You're really going to destroy your son's life over furniture? What kind of mother does that? We have kids to think about. Your grandchildren. You're going to let them see their father in handcuffs because of your selfishness. Grandchildren. She'd used them like weapons before, withholding visits when I didn't give enough money, didn't babysit on demand. Now she was using them as shields. But here's what she didn't understand. I'd already lost my grandchildren. Lost them the same day I lost my son, the day greed became more important than love. Jennifer called on day 5. The DA is moving forward with charges. Grand theft, elder abuse, and fraud. Your son and daughter-in-law are facing serious time if convicted. How serious? 3 to 5 years. Each. I closed my eyes. Tried to feel something, guilt, maybe, or regret. But all I felt was tired. There's a way out for them, Jennifer continued. If they return every single item, issue a public apology, and agree to stay away from you for a minimum of 2 years with no contact, the DA might consider reducing charges to misdemeanors with probation and community service. And if they don't? Then we go to trial. And based on the evidence, you'll win. But trials are exhausting, especially she caught herself. Especially for anyone. Especially for old people. She didn't have to say it. What do you think I should do? I asked. What do you want to do? This isn't about revenge, Mrs. Chun. This is about justice and healing. Which path gets you there? I thought about my empty house, slowly filling back up with things that suddenly didn't matter as much as they used to. Thought about my son's face when those handcuffs went on. Thought about years of giving and giving and giving until there was nothing left. I want them to understand, I said quietly. I want them to know they can't treat people this way. That love isn't a license to steal. That being family means something, and they broke it. Then we move forward with the case. We move forward. Jennifer paused. Mrs. Chun? Your husband, he must have been a very smart man. The way he set up that trust, the inventory he kept. It's like he knew you'd need protection someday. He was. My voice caught. He was the smartest man I ever knew. I think he'd be proud of you right now. I hung up and let myself cry. Not for my son, not anymore. But for my husband, who'd loved me enough to protect me even after death. Who'd seen what I couldn't see, planned what I couldn't plan. That night, something else happened. Something I didn't expect. My phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Chun. A woman's voice, shaking. This is Sarah. Your son's business partner's wife. I need to talk to you about something. Something I think you should know. What secret was about to be revealed? What had been hidden all along? Drop your theories in the comments. My grip tightened on the phone. I'm listening. Sarah took a shaky breath. I shouldn't be calling you. My husband would kill me if he knew. But what they did to you, it's not the first time. Not the first time. Those 4 words made my blood run cold. What do you mean? Your daughter-in-law Rebecca, she's done this before. To her own parents. She convinced them to sign over their house, said she'd take care of them. Then she stuck them in a nursing home and sold everything. Her parents tried to fight it, but she'd manipulated the paperwork. Made it legal. They lost everything. I sat down hard on the Johnsons' borrowed chair. When was this? 3 years ago. Right before she married your son. Her parents tried to warn him, but she spun this whole story about them being senile and vindictive. He believed her. Sarah's voice dropped. Or maybe he wanted to believe her. Maybe he saw an opportunity. The room tilted. I thought of every dinner I'd sat through, every holiday where Rebecca had smiled at me with those perfect teeth, every time she touched my things with those manicured hands. She'd been calculating, planning, watching and waiting for the right moment. There's more, Sarah continued. My husband showed me their business accounts. Your son's company is drowning in debt. They're 3 months behind on their commercial lease. The new house they bought? They can't afford the mortgage. They needed cash fast, and your furniture, your things, they were planning to sell all of it. Sell it. Not keep it for their new house like they'd said. Sell it to cover their debts. Why are you telling me this? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Because my husband wants to use your son's arrest to take over the company. He's trying to push him out while he's vulnerable. And I realized, none of this would have happened if someone had warned your son about Rebecca years ago. If someone had told him the truth before he married her. She paused. I can't save your relationship with your son. But maybe you can save him from her. After she hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time. My son wasn't just a thief. He was a fool. A fool who'd married a predator and let her turn him into one too. Did that excuse what he'd done? No. But it explained it. The sudden need for furniture. The urgency in their movements. The way Rebecca had directed everything while my son just followed orders. He'd always been a follower. Even as a kid, he'd do whatever his friends told him to do. I'd thought he'd outgrow it. Instead, he just found a new leader, one who was walking him straight off a cliff. The next morning, I called Jennifer. Told her everything Sarah had said. I'll look into it, she said. If what this woman says is true, we might be dealing with something much bigger than simple theft. This could be part of a pattern of elder abuse. What about her parents? The ones she did this to before. I'll find them. If they're willing to testify about what happened to them, it could change everything. 3 days later, Jennifer called back. I found them. Rebecca's parents, Martin and Susan Foster. They're living in a state-run nursing home in Arizona. Medicaid. They lost everything when Rebecca sold their house and disappeared with the money. Can you put me in touch with them? Already did. They want to talk to you. That afternoon, I spoke to Susan Foster on the phone. Her voice was thin and tired, the voice of someone who'd given up fighting. She was so sweet at first, Susan told me. So attentive. Visited us every week, brought groceries, helped with bills. Then one day she said we should move in with her and her new boyfriend, your son. Said we were getting too old to manage the house alone. You signed it over to her. She said it was just for tax purposes. That we'd still own it, just on paper it would be in her name. We trusted her. She was our daughter. Susan's voice broke. We trusted our own child. I knew that pain. Knew it intimately now. She put us in a home 6 months later. Sold the house, the furniture, everything. When we tried to fight it, she had doctors testify that we were incompetent. Senile. She'd been slipping sleeping pills in our food for weeks, making us confused and disoriented. She documented every confused moment, built a case that we couldn't take care of ourselves. That's diabolical. That's our daughter. Susan sighed. I tried to warn your son. Called him before the wedding. He hung up on me. Told Rebecca I was harassing them. We haven't spoken since. Would you testify? If this goes to trial. A long pause. Then, will it help stop her from doing this to someone else? Yes. Then I'll testify. My husband too. We'll tell everything. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in days, clarity. This wasn't just about me and my furniture anymore. This was about stopping a pattern. About making sure Rebecca didn't do to anyone else what she'd done to her own parents. To me. But my son. Where did he fit in all this? Was he a willing participant or another victim? Had Rebecca manipulated him too, or had she just awakened something already dark inside him? I needed to know. Against Jennifer's advice, I went to see him. The county jail was gray and cold, smelling of disinfectant and despair. They brought him out in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He looked young suddenly. Not like the successful businessman who'd walked into my house a week ago, but like the scared teenager who'd gotten in trouble and needed his mother to fix it. Mom. His voice cracked. Mom, I'm so sorry. Are you? Or are you sorry you got caught? He flinched. Both. I don't know. Everything's such a mess. Tell me about Rebecca's parents. His head snapped up. What? Martin and Susan Foster. Tell me what happened to them. I watched the color drain from his face. Watched him realize I knew. Watched the excuses try to form and fail. That was different, he finally said. They actually were sick. They needed help. They needed help. So she sold their house and abandoned them in a state home on Medicaid. She said they agreed. They didn't. She forged documents. Drugged them. Built a case that they were incompetent. Does any of this sound familiar? He stared at me. Really looked at me for the first time since he'd sat down. Mom, you don't understand. We were desperate. The business is failing. We're going to lose everything. We thought, you had so much stuff. You live alone. You don't need all of it. We weren't going to hurt you. Just steal from me and sell my memories. They're just things. They're my life. I slammed my hand on the table, and a guard started toward us. I held up my hand. I'm fine. That furniture held 40 years of marriage. Those dishes served Christmas dinner to you when you were 5. That jewelry box had the bracelet you gave me with your allowance money. Do you even remember that? Do you remember being 7 years old and so proud to give your mother a gift? Tears started rolling down his face. I remember. Then tell me when you stopped caring. Tell me when I became just another mark. Another house to strip. Another old person with too much stuff. When the bills started piling up. When the business started failing. When Rebecca kept saying we deserved better. That you'd want to help if you knew how bad things were. That family takes care of family. He looked at me with something like desperation. I convinced myself we were doing you a favor. Decluttering. Helping you downsize before you got too old to do it yourself. You convinced yourself. Or Rebecca convinced you. He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. She did this to her own parents, I said quietly. And now she's doing it to you. Using you. When you're no longer useful, she'll do to you what she did to them. To me. She'll take everything and move on. No. No, she loves me. Does she? Or does she love what you can give her? I leaned forward. Wake up. Look at where you are. You're in jail. Your business is tanking. Your partner is trying to push you out. Your mother had to press charges against you to get her own property back. And where is Rebecca through all of this? She's handling the lawyers. She's planning her exit. I guarantee it. I stood up. You have a choice to make. You can go down with her, or you can save yourself. But you can't do both. What are you saying? I'm saying tell the truth. All of it. About what she did to her parents. About what she planned to do to me. About the debts and the schemes. Cooperate with the prosecutors. Maybe you can salvage something from this mess. You want me to testify against my wife? I want you to tell the truth. For once in your life, stop following and think for yourself. I left him sitting there, head in his hands, crying. I didn't feel good about it. Didn't feel victorious. Just felt tired and sad and old. But I'd said what needed to be said. 2 days later, Jennifer called with news. Your son wants to talk. He's willing to give a full statement about Rebecca's involvement. About her parents. About everything. Is he lying to save himself? I don't think so. We verified everything he's saying. Rebecca's parents confirmed the details. It matches. She paused. There's more. Rebecca tried to empty their joint bank account yesterday. Transferred everything to an account in her name only. Your son's lawyer caught it just in time and got a freeze order. So I'd been right. Rebecca was already planning her escape. The DA is offering your son a deal. He testifies against Rebecca, returns all your property, completes 2 years probation and 300 hours of community service. The charges get reduced to a misdemeanor. And Rebecca? She's facing the full weight of it. Multiple counts of elder abuse, fraud, theft. Both cases, yours and her parents. She's looking at 15 to 20 years. 20 years. Almost enough time to match the 20 years of damage she'd caused. What about my son's business? His debts? That's not really relevant to the criminal case, but, Jennifer hesitated. Let's just say bankruptcy might be his cleanest option. Start over fresh once he's done with probation. Start over. At 42 years old. Back to zero. Maybe that's what he needed. Maybe we both needed to start over. Tell him I accept the deal, I said. On one condition. What's that? After his probation is done, he gets therapy. Real therapy. Not just court-mandated. I want him to understand what he did and why he did it. I want him to figure out who he is without someone else pulling his strings. I'll add it to the agreement. The trial for Rebecca was set for 3 months later. My son would testify. Her parents would testify. I would testify. The evidence was overwhelming. Videos, documents, paper trails of lies and manipulation. But before any of that could happen, something else occurred. Something no one saw coming. Rebecca was found 3 weeks later in Mexico, living under a fake name in a resort town. She'd been using my son's credit cards to fund her escape until they got frozen. Then she tried to use her father's identity, her father, the man she'd robbed and abandoned in a state nursing home. That's how the authorities tracked her down. The Fosters had flagged any use of their information years ago, after what Rebecca had done to them. One charge at a hotel in Cabo and the system lit up like a Christmas tree. They extradited her within days. I wasn't there when they brought her back, but Jennifer showed me the booking photo. Rebecca looked different without makeup, without the expensive clothes and perfect hair. She looked ordinary. Like any other criminal who'd gotten caught. The trial started in early fall. The courtroom was packed: Rebecca's parents, my neighbors, reporters who'd gotten wind of the elder abuse angle. My son sat in the witness box looking 10 years older than he was. He told everything. How Rebecca had isolated him from me. How she'd convinced him his mother was hoarding, that I'd want to help if I knew how bad their finances were. How she'd planned every detail of that day, even renting the truck under a fake name. "Did you know about her parents?" the prosecutor asked. "Not until after we were married. She said they were abusive. That they'd disowned her. I believed her." My son's voice was steady but quiet. "I didn't know the truth until my mother told me. Until I was sitting in jail and finally had time to think clearly." "And when you learned the truth?" "I realized I'd married someone I didn't know at all. Someone who'd been using me from day one." Rebecca's lawyer tried to paint my son as the mastermind, but the evidence didn't support it. Bank records showed Rebecca had been researching my property values for months. Text messages showed her coaching my son on what to say. Witness statements from neighbors confirmed she'd been directing the entire operation. When Susan Foster took the stand, the courtroom went silent. She described in painful detail how her own daughter had drugged her, manipulated her, stolen from her. How she and her husband had lost everything and ended up in a facility where the staff changed their diapers and fed them pureed food because that's all Medicaid covered. "Do you see your daughter in this courtroom?" the prosecutor asked. Susan looked right at Rebecca. "I see someone who looks like my daughter. But my daughter died years ago. This person is a stranger." I knew exactly how she felt. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand on shaky legs. Looked out at all those faces, my neighbors who'd supported me, reporters taking notes, my son in the back row with his head down, and Rebecca, staring at me with cold eyes that held no remorse. The prosecutor walked me through that day. What they'd said. What they'd taken. How it felt to watch my life being loaded onto a truck. "Mrs. Chen, did you give permission for any items to be removed from your home?" "No. I never gave permission." I stood there in shock while they took everything that mattered to me. "Did your son or daughter-in-law ever ask if they could have these items?" "No. They just took them. Told me I didn't need them anymore." I looked at Rebecca. Told me they were doing me a favor. Rebecca's lawyer stood up. "Mrs. Chen, isn't it true that you're elderly and sometimes confused? That you might have agreed and simply don't remember?" Something hot flared in my chest. I'm 73, not senile. I remember every detail of that day. I remember my daughter-in-law eyeing my possessions like they were garage sale items. I remember my son carrying out his father's rocking chair without even asking if it meant anything to me. I remember watching my family betray me, and I remember it perfectly. The lawyer tried a different angle. "You must have been hurt when your son married Rebecca. When he started his own life. Isn't this really about jealousy?" "Jealousy? Of what? Of a woman who drugs her own parents and steals their home? Of someone who manipulates and lies and runs away when she gets caught?" I leaned forward. "I'm not jealous. I'm heartbroken. There's a difference." After 3 days of testimony, the jury got the case. They were out for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Rebecca showed no emotion when the verdict was read. Just stared straight ahead like the judge was reading someone else's fate. But when they led her away in handcuffs, she looked back at my son one time. He didn't look back. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for excuses. "Ms. Foster," she said, looking down at Rebecca, "you have systematically targeted the elderly, including your own parents. You have manipulated, stolen, and betrayed everyone who trusted you. The court finds this behavior particularly heinous given that you targeted those least able to defend themselves." Rebecca's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my client has suffered from mental health issues. Your client suffers from greed and a complete lack of conscience." The judge cut him off. "She is a danger to society, particularly to our most vulnerable citizens. I'm sentencing her to 18 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for 12 years. 18 years. Rebecca would be in her 60s when she got out. Older than I was when she tried to steal my life. Winter came. My house was full again, but I was different. The woman who'd stood helplessly watching her life get stolen was gone. In her place was someone harder, wiser, more careful with her trust. The neighbors still checked on me. Linda and Mr. Patterson had become daily fixtures, stopping by for coffee or just to chat. Mrs. Kim invited me to her book club. Young Marcus taught me how to use the video doorbell he'd installed for free. So you can see who's coming before they get to your door, he'd said. No more surprises. No more surprises sounded good to me. My son texted once a week. Nothing heavy. Just updates on his life. The job was going well. He'd made a friend at work. His apartment was small but clean. He was reading again, books from the library since he couldn't afford to buy any. I read every text. Didn't always respond. But I read them. In January, his therapist called me. Mrs. Chen, I'm Dr. Martinez. I've been working with your son for the past 2 months. He's asked me to reach out about family therapy, but I wanted to check in with you first. How are you doing? How was I doing? That was a complicated question. I'm surviving, I said. Some days are better than others. That's honest. Thank you. Dr. Martinez had a calm, steady voice. I want you to know that family therapy isn't about forcing forgiveness or reconciliation. It's about creating a safe space to process what happened. To say things that need to be said. To hear things that need to be heard. You're in control the entire time. And if I decide I don't want a relationship with him anymore, will you try to convince me otherwise? Absolutely not. My job is to help you both heal, whatever that looks like. If healing means going your separate ways, that's valid. If it means slowly rebuilding trust, that's valid too. I thought about it for a week. Talked it over with Linda, with Jennifer, with the walls of my empty living room at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come. Finally, I called Dr. Martinez back. Okay, I'll try. But the first time I feel uncomfortable or pushed, I'm done. Fair enough. How about next Thursday at 2? The therapy office was nothing like I expected. No cold white walls or uncomfortable couches. Just a warm room with soft chairs and a box of tissues on every surface. My son was already there when I arrived, sitting on the edge of his seat like he was ready to run. He looked thinner, tired, but also somehow more present than he'd been in years. Mrs. Chen, Dr. Martinez greeted me with a kind smile. Thank you for coming. This took courage. We started slowly. Dr. Martinez asked us to talk about our relationship before everything fell apart. I described the little boy who used to help me garden. My son described the mother who always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. It hurt. Remembering the good times hurt worse than remembering the bad. What changed? Dr. Martinez asked. My son answered first. I got greedy. I wanted more than what I had. More than what I'd earned. And when Rebecca showed up promising me the world, I believed her. I chose her fantasy over my mother's reality. And you, Mrs. Chen? What changed for you? I kept giving and giving, hoping it would be enough. Hoping he'd see how much I loved him. But it was never enough because I was trying to fill a hole I didn't create. I looked at my son. You had to fill that hole yourself. I couldn't do it for you. We met every Thursday for 3 months. Some sessions were quiet. Some were explosive. Once, I walked out halfway through because my son tried to blame his father for not teaching him about money. Don't you dare, I'd snapped. Your father worked himself to death giving you opportunities. He taught you everything you needed to know. You just weren't listening. Dr. Martinez had called me later that night. What you did today, setting that boundary, that was important. Come back next week. He needs to hear these things. And I did go back. Because as much as it hurt, I needed to say these things. Needed him to hear them. Needed both of us to face the truth of what had happened and why. By spring, something had shifted. We weren't close. Weren't anywhere near the relationship we'd had before. But we weren't enemies either. We were 2 people trying to figure out if there was a path forward. One Thursday in April, my son brought something to therapy. A small wooden box, worn smooth with age. I made this in shop class, he said, setting it on the table between us. 8th grade. Remember? You kept pencils in it on the kitchen counter. I did remember. Rebecca had taken it with everything else. How did he get it back? She pawned it, he said quietly. Before she ran. I found it in a pawn shop last week. Cost me half a paycheck to buy back something I made with my own hands. He pushed it toward me. It's yours. It was always yours. I picked up the box. Ran my fingers over the wood, feeling the imperfections of a 13-year-old's craftsmanship. Saw the initials he'd carved in the bottom, MC, for Mom Chun. He remembered you existed back then, Dr. Martinez said softly. The boy who made this loved his mother. I'm trying to find that boy again, my son said. Trying to remember who I was before I let greed and fear turn me into someone else. I held that box and felt something crack open inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. Keep coming to therapy, I said. Keep working on yourself. And maybe someday we'll figure this out. I will. I promise. After that session, I started responding to his texts more often. Not long conversations. Just acknowledgements. I see you're trying. Keep going. I'm still here. In May, he asked if he could take me to lunch. Somewhere public, somewhere safe, just the two of us. I said yes. We met at a diner halfway between our homes. Neutral territory. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth by the window, drinking coffee with shaking hands. Hi, Mom. Hi. I slid into the opposite seat, keeping the table between us. We ordered. Made small talk. Avoided anything heavy. It was awkward and strange and nothing like the easy conversations we'd had before. But it was something. It was a start. How's the job? I asked. Good. Got promoted to shift supervisor last week. That's good. Yeah. He stirred his coffee. I'm saving money. Not much but some. Trying to pay off the debts Rebecca left behind. We ate in silence for a while. Then out of nowhere he said, I dream about that day sometimes. See myself carrying out your furniture. And in the dream, I stop. I put everything back. I tell Rebecca no. I choose you instead of things. He looked up at me. But I can't change what really happened. Can't take it back. No, you can't. So what do I do? How do I live with this? I thought about my husband's trust, protecting me even after death. About Mr. Patterson's video, capturing truth when I couldn't speak it. About all the neighbors who'd rallied around me when my own family had betrayed me. You live by being better, I said. By making different choices every day. By helping others instead of taking from them. You can't erase the past, but you can build a different future. Will you be in that future? Even a little bit. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Saw the gray at his temples that hadn't been there before. The lines around his eyes. The weight of regret in every gesture. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I'm here today. That's more than I thought I'd be 6 months ago. He nodded. Accepted it. Didn't push for more. We finished lunch. Split the check. Walked to our separate cars. Mom? He called before I got in. Thank you. For showing up. For trying. For not giving up on me completely. Don't thank me yet. We have a long way to go. I know. But we're going. He was right. We were going. Not backward to what we'd been. But forward to something new, something uncharted, something that might hurt less eventually. Is rebuilding trust after betrayal even possible? What would it take for you to let someone back into your life? Tell us your story. Summer arrived with hot, sticky days that made my old house feel smaller somehow. I'd started making changes. Nothing dramatic. Just small things that made the space feel more like mine and less like a museum of memories. I painted the living room. A soft yellow that caught the morning light. Linda helped, and we laughed when we got more paint on ourselves than the walls. It felt good. Felt like reclaiming something. My son asked if he could help with the guest room. I hesitated but said yes. He showed up with paintbrushes and drop cloths, and we worked in careful silence. Not the comfortable silence of before, but not hostile either. Just two people existing in the same space, trying to find a rhythm. I like the yellow, he said, rolling paint onto the bedroom wall. Dad would have liked it too. I almost snapped at him. Don't talk about your father, you don't deserve to mention him. But I caught myself. Because maybe he did deserve to remember his father. Maybe remembering was part of how he'd find his way back. He always wanted me to paint this room, I said instead. Said the white was too boring. I kept putting it off. Why? I don't know. Maybe I liked boring. Maybe change felt scary. I dipped my brush. Or maybe I was saving it for when I'd have grandchildren to decorate it for. The words hung between us. Grandchildren. The family that would never exist now. The future that had died with his marriage to Rebecca. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for all the things I took from you. Including that. We finished painting without saying much else. But when he left, he hugged me. Just briefly, just barely. But he did it, and I didn't pull away. Baby steps. That's what Dr. Martinez called them. Baby steps towards something resembling a relationship. In July, Linda convinced me to join a seniors travel group. You've been talking about those places forever. Stop talking and go. I'm too old to travel alone. You won't be alone. There's 15 people going. All ages, all backgrounds. And I already signed you up for the Italy trip in September. She grinned. Surprise. Italy. One of the places from that old notebook. One of the dreams I'd buried under decades of other people's needs. Linda, I can't. You can. You will. Consider it a gift from everyone who watched you survive this year. We want you to live, not just exist. So in September, I boarded a plane for the first time in 40 years. Flew across an ocean to walk streets I'd only seen in pictures. Ate pasta in Rome. Sipped wine in Tuscany. Stood in front of the Sistine Chapel and cried because it was more beautiful than I'd imagined. And I wasn't alone. The group became friends. Fellow travelers who shared stories and laughter and sometimes tears. People who didn't know my history, who saw me as just Barbara, not Barbara the victim, not Barbara the betrayed mother. Just Barbara who loved good food and old architecture and terrible puns. I sent my son postcards. Nothing deep. Just wish you were here, and pictures of places I'd seen. He texted back each time. Short messages that said he was proud of me for going. That his dad would have been proud too. When I came home in October, tanned and tired and happier than I'd been in years, my son was waiting at the airport. I hadn't asked him to come. But there he was, holding a sign that said "Welcome home, Mom," like I was some celebrity. You came, I said, surprised. You sent postcards. Seemed like you wanted someone to share it with. He took my suitcase. Tell me everything. How was the food? The wine? Did you climb the Spanish steps? We talked all the way home. Really talked. About my trip, about the people I'd met, about standing in the Colosseum and feeling small and ancient and alive all at once. I'm jealous, he admitted. In a good way. I'm happy for you, but also jealous that you're out there doing things while I'm stuck in my tiny apartment paying off debts. You could travel someday. When the probation's done. When the debts are paid. Maybe we could go together. You could show me all the places you've been. It was a nice fantasy. Mother and son traveling Europe together like we had some normal, functional relationship. But I didn't shut it down. Didn't say impossible or never. Just said, maybe someday. And left it at that. Thanksgiving came. I'd spent every Thanksgiving for 40 years cooking for family. This year, I was invited to 3 different places: Linda's house, Mrs. Kim's house, and my son's apartment. I chose my son's apartment. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't erasing everything that had happened. It was just a choice to spend a holiday not alone, not angry, not stuck in the past. His apartment was small and sparse. Nothing like the big house he'd shared with Rebecca. Just a studio with a Murphy bed and a hot plate that passed for a kitchen. But he'd tried. Put up a few decorations. Bought a pre-cooked turkey from the grocery store. Set the table with mismatched dishes from Goodwill. It's not much, he said nervously. But it's honest. Honest. That was the right word. This apartment, this meal, this version of my son, it was all honest in a way nothing had been for years. We ate. Talked about safe things. His job, my travels, the weather. Then, after dinner, he pulled out a folder. I want to show you something. You don't have to look if you don't want to. But I think you should. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Written to me but never sent. I've been writing to you, he explained. Every week since the trial. Everything I wanted to say but couldn't. Everything I was feeling. My therapist suggested it. Said it would help me process even if you never read them. I picked up the first one. Dated from last October. His handwriting was messy, desperate. Dear Mom, I can't believe what I've done. I can't believe I'm the person who would steal from his own mother. When I close my eyes, I see your face as we carried out Dad's chair. You looked destroyed. I did that to you. Me. Your son. The boy you raised to be better. I don't know how to live with this. I don't know if I deserve to. I picked up another. From December. Dear Mom, Dr. Martinez says I need to forgive myself, but how do I do that when I haven't earned your forgiveness? You're coming to therapy now, and every Thursday I'm terrified you won't show up. That you'll decide I'm not worth the effort. And I wouldn't blame you. But I'm trying. I'm trying so hard to be someone you could love again. Letter after letter, month after month. His journey through guilt and shame and slowly, painfully, toward understanding and change. The most recent one was dated just last week. Dear Mom, you went to Italy. You did it. You took that dream off the shelf and made it real. I'm so proud of you. And I'm so sorry I wasn't the son who encouraged you to go years ago. I was too busy taking from you to see that you needed to take something for yourself. But you're doing it now. You're living. And maybe if I keep trying, someday you'll let me be part of that life again. Not the old life. A new one. Better. Honest. Real. I hope so. I love you. I never stopped, even when I hurt you. I love you. Your son. I set down the letters. Looked at my son through tears. Why didn't you send these? Because they're not about making you forgive me. They're about me learning to be honest. With myself, with you, with everyone. He wiped his own eyes. But you can have them now. If you want them. If they help at all. I gathered up the letters. Held them to my chest. Thank you. For writing them. For showing me. Thank you for coming today. For giving me chances I don't deserve. We cleaned up together. Washed dishes in his tiny sink. And when I left, I took those letters with me. That night, I read every single one. Saw my son's journey from denial to acceptance. Saw him struggling with who he'd become and fighting to be better. Saw glimpses of the boy I'd raised hiding underneath the man who'd betrayed me. And I realized something. I was tired of being angry. Tired of holding on to hurt like it was something precious. Tired of letting what had happened define every day that came after. Maybe it was time to try something different. When is it time to let go of anger? How do you know when someone's really changed? Drop your thoughts below. She won't win. The evidence is too strong. And honestly, I don't care anymore. She's not my problem. She's just a cautionary tale about what happens when greed replaces humanity. We sat in silence for a while, watching the tree lights blink. Then my son reached into his coat pocket. I have something for you. It's not much. But, he pulled out a small wrapped box. Merry Christmas, Mom. I opened it carefully. Inside was a silver bracelet. Simple, elegant. And engraved on the inside, to new beginnings. Love, your son. Not the bracelet he'd stolen from me. A new one. Different. Better. I saved up for 3 months, he said. Wanted it to mean something. Wanted it to be from me, not from some lie or scheme. Just honest money, honestly earned, given to you because I love you. I put it on. It fit perfectly. Thank you. This means more than you know. I know I can't replace what I took. The memories, the trust, the years we lost. But I can give you new things. Better things. If you'll let me. I'm letting you. One day at a time. He stayed until evening. We watched old movies, the kind we used to watch together when he was young. He fell asleep on the couch halfway through, exhausted from his early shifts at the warehouse. I covered him with a blanket and watched him sleep, this man who'd once been my baby, who'd hurt me worse than anyone ever had, who was slowly, painfully becoming someone I might be able to trust again. When he woke up, he was embarrassed. Sorry. Haven't been sleeping great lately. Bad dreams. Sometimes. Other times I just lie awake thinking about everything. About how close I came to losing you forever. He sat up, folding the blanket carefully. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you think Dad would be ashamed of me? For what I did? I thought about my husband. About his careful planning, his protective instincts, his deep love for both of us. About how he'd known somehow that I might need protection even from our own son. I think he'd be disappointed in who you became. But I think he'd be proud of who you're trying to be now. Your father believed in second chances. He believed people could change if they really wanted to. Do you believe that? I'm starting to. You're teaching me. He left around 9, promising to text when he got home safely. I watched him drive away, then sat in my newly yellow living room with my new bracelet catching the light, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not complete peace. Not uncomplicated peace. But peace nonetheless. Have you ever had to choose between holding on to anger or trying to heal? What made you finally let go? We'd love to hear your story. Spring came again. A full year since that terrible day. A year of trials and therapy and tiny steps forward. A year of learning who I was without the weight of my son's needs crushing me. I was in my garden when he called. I'd taken up gardening again, something I'd loved before life got too busy, before other people's problems became more important than my own peace. Mom? Are you busy? Just planting tomatoes. What's up? My probation officer called. I completed all my hours. The probation's officially over. I sat back on my heels. 2 years. It had felt like forever and no time at all. How do you feel? Free. Scared. Like I have a clean slate but no idea what to write on it. That's the best kind of slate to have. Full of possibilities. Yeah. He paused. There's something else. The warehouse offered me a full-time management position. Good salary. Benefits. Real opportunity to build something. That's wonderful. You should take it. I did. Already signed the papers. But Mom, his voice changed, got serious. I'm not doing it to impress you. I'm not trying to prove I'm worthy or buy my way back into your life. I'm doing it because it's right. Because it's honest. Because it's who I want to be. I know. That's why it matters. We talked for a few more minutes about logistics, about his plans, about nothing and everything. When we hung up, I went back to my tomatoes with a smile on my face. That evening, Linda came over with wine. I heard the good news. About your son's probation ending. How did you hear? Small neighborhood. People talk. Mr. Patterson ran into him at the grocery store. She poured 2 glasses. So what happens now? Now? I don't know. We keep moving forward, I guess. Keep building whatever this new relationship is. Are you happy? With how things turned out? Was I happy? That was complicated. I'd lost so much years with my son, the fantasy of a perfect family, the naive belief that blood guaranteed loyalty. But I'd gained things too. Strength I didn't know I had. Friends who showed up when it mattered. Freedom to live for myself instead of through others. I'm not unhappy, I said finally. That's something. Linda raised her glass. To not being unhappy. And to Italy. And to yellow living rooms. And to not letting bastards grind you down. We clinked glasses and drank. The Japan trip was scheduled for late May. I'd signed up months ago, back when traveling felt like rebellion. Now it just felt like living. The group from Italy was going, familiar faces, easy friendships. My son asked if he could drive me to the airport. You don't have to, I said. I want to. If that's okay. So on a Tuesday morning, he picked me up at dawn. Loaded my suitcase into his beat-up car, not the fancy SUV he'd driven when he was with Rebecca, just an old Honda that ran well and didn't pretend to be more than it was. We drove through quiet streets as the sun came up, not saying much. Comfortable now with silence. With just being together without needing it to be perfect. At the airport, he helped me check my bag. Walked me to security even though he didn't have a boarding pass. Have an amazing time, he said, hugging me. Send me pictures. Tell me about everything. I will. And Mom. He pulled back, looking at me seriously. Thank you. For not giving up. For letting me try. For, his voice caught. For still being my mom even when I didn't deserve it. You always deserved a mother's love. You just didn't always deserve my trust. There's a difference. Do I have your trust now? Even a little. I thought about the past year. The consistency. The honesty. The way he'd shown up again and again without asking for anything in return. The letters. The therapy. The bracelet. The small, daily choices to be better. You're earning it back, I said. Piece by piece. Day by day. That's all I can ask for. I went through security. Turned back to wave. He was still standing there, watching, making sure I was okay. Just like parents do for their children. Except now he was doing it for me. Japan was magical. Cherry blossoms and bullet trains and temples that had stood for centuries. I ate strange foods and got lost in Tokyo and laughed with people who'd become real friends. I sent my son pictures like I'd promised. He sent back responses that were enthusiastic and genuine. Told me about his week, his job, the apartment he was thinking about moving to, bigger, brighter, a place that felt like a real home. On my last day in Kyoto, I visited a temple known for letting go. People wrote regrets on paper, tied them to trees, and left them behind. I stood there with my pen for a long time, thinking about what to write. Finally, I wrote, I regret the years I spent angry. I'm letting that go now. I tied it to a branch and walked away feeling lighter. When I came home, my son was waiting at the airport again. This time with flowers. Welcome back, world traveler. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. Plus, I have news. He grinned. I got the bigger apartment. Moving in next month. And Mom, it has a guest room. If you ever wanted to visit. No pressure. Just, if you wanted. A guest room. Space for me in his life. Not taken by force, not stolen or manipulated. Just offered. Honest and open. I'd like that, I said. Someday soon. We drove home together, him telling me about the apartment, me telling him about Japan. Easy conversation. The kind you have with people you trust. That night, I sat in my yellow living room and looked around. This house had seen so much, love and loss, betrayal and healing, endings and new beginnings. These walls held 40 years of my life, the good and the bad all mixed together. But I wasn't trapped here. Wasn't defined by what had happened within these walls. I was just a woman who'd survived something terrible and come out the other side stronger. My phone rang. My son. Sorry to call so late. Just wanted to make sure you got an okay. I did. Thank you for picking me up. Anytime. That's what family does, right? Show up for each other. Family. That word meant something different now. Not automatic. Not guaranteed. Something you built with actions, not just blood. Yeah, I said. That's what family does. After we hung up, I pulled out that old notebook. The one with all the dreams my husband and I had written down. I'd crossed off Italy. Could cross off Japan now. Still had Paris, Rome, New Zealand, Costa Rica. And at the bottom in fresh ink I added, build a relationship with my son that's based on truth, not obligation. On choice, not guilt. On who we are now, not who we used to be. It wasn't the family I'd planned. Wasn't the golden years I'd imagined. But it was real. It was honest. And it was mine. Outside, spring was turning into summer. The garden was blooming. The neighborhood was alive with families and laughter and the ordinary chaos of life continuing. I'd survived the worst betrayal I could imagine. I'd lost things that mattered and found things I didn't know I needed. I'd learned that you can love someone and set boundaries. That forgiveness isn't forgetting. That strength sometimes looks like sitting on your empty floor and deciding not to break. And I'd learned that endings can become beginnings if you're brave enough to let them. My son would never be the boy I raised. That boy was gone, taken by time and choices and circumstances I couldn't control. But this man, imperfect, struggling, trying, he was something. Maybe something better. Maybe something real. We had a long way to go. Trust was fragile. Easily broken, slowly repaired. But we were repairing it. Thread by thread. Day by day. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. What's your story? Have you survived betrayal and found your way to the other side? Have you had to rebuild a relationship from the ground up? Or are you still in the middle of your journey, trying to figure out if healing is even possible? We want to hear from you. Your story matters. Your pain matters. Your survival matters. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's possible to survive the worst and still find peace on the other side. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we bring you stories of struggle and strength, of betrayal and redemption, of people who refuse to let their worst moments define their entire lives. You're not alone in this. Whatever you're going through, whatever family drama or heartbreak or betrayal you're facing, you're not alone. This community is here. We see you. We hear you. And we're rooting for you. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on those notifications. And come back next week for another story that will remind you just how strong you really are. Until then, remember, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it heals. And sometimes it just means choosing yourself when everyone else has chosen greed. Take care of yourselves out there. You're worth it.